episode number 3 or 4, I believe. Not really sure. Anyways, I am in Mount Shasta in Northern California right now. I've been here for about a week now, working, recording a beautiful spiritual experience with a group of 8 people that came to pray at the mountain. And that experience is now over, and I'm staying here a few more days. My birthday was yesterday, August 7th, so I was celebrating it here in the mountain. And today is 8/8, which is a very important date in the calendar to write down your dreams, to journal, to create the life that you're dreaming of, and just to put down on paper everything you want to let go of, and everything you are becoming, and everything you are working towards as well. So with that said, my hair is a little messy right now. It's not cooperating a lot. But I am going to do a little bit of storytelling about my life, things that I want to let go of that have really, really confronted me and come up to the surface in this trip in particular while I was here working. And things that I am welcoming into my life. Getting ready for a new chapter, getting ready for new beginnings, getting ready for a new job, and creating new dreams as well. So I'm going to start from when I was 2 years old, because back in 2020, when I was going through a very deep healing journey, and I did ayahuasca for the very first time in Valle de Guadalupe at a beautiful space called Breathe in Baja. And I had a major realization. And this actually happened, I believe, before I even did ceremony. But I was meditating in my apartment by myself, and without knowing it, I did a regression on myself. Without knowing that I was doing a regression on myself, it just kind of naturally and innately began to happen while I was meditating and praying. And this memory came up to the surface where I had been sexually abused when I was 2 years old. And I sat with that and I cried. My body, I feel, was releasing a lot of that pain and the trauma. And I cried and I cried, and I asked, who it was, and I asked for guidance as to how to navigate that. I spoke about it with a former therapist that I was seeing at the time. And without me mentioning that had come up for me in meditation, we were going back to our childhood, and that same situation ended up coming up to the surface, where she asked me, like, do you feel like you were abused when you were a child, like sexually abused, or do you feel like you were assaulted in some way from ages 0 to 7? And I said, oh, actually, coincidentally, like a few months ago, this came up in meditation while I was doing, praying in my altar. And I realized that an abuse happened when I was 2 years old. And I don't know for how long that continued, or the gravity of it, but I just remember the memories coming up to the surface and going through the pain of that abuse. And of course, like as a 2-year-old, you don't have the words for what's happening. You can only feel what is happening, so you don't even know how to communicate to ask for help. So it could be extremely painful. And we went through it with my therapist, we worked on it, etc. I kind of kept asking for guidance as to who it was. I was kind of curious to find out, and then eventually I just let it go, and I said, you know what? I'm making peace with the situation in my life. It happened. Now what I truly want to know is how this shows up in my daily life today as an adult, how this trauma and this pain is showing up as an adult, and the patterns and the situations or circumstances that I'm attracting into my life because of this abuse. Because subconsciously, what ends up happening is that becomes one of the first ways in which we receive love. As crazy as it sounds and as painful as it sounds, we interpret that as one of the ways in which we receive love, and then unconsciously we continue attracting situations similar to that because it is what we learned when we were 2 years old, and it is what we received or perceived as love. Even though today as an adult now I understand that love gets to be healthy, there gets to be healthy communication, there gets to be respect for boundaries, there get to be difficult conversations where there doesn't need to be fear of abandonment because the partner or the person that chooses you is going to know how to repair in conflict, and is going to kind of understand your patterns, your behaviors, where your trauma is coming from, your vulnerabilities, and they're going to be able to see past your patterns and behaviors. And there's going to be healthy communication around what I'm working through in any particular time in my life, what they're working through in that particular time of their life. And there's going to be empathy and compassion for that pain as we navigate challenges in partnership and relationships. So that is my main concern today and my main challenge. Like, how does this pain from my past show up in my current relationships and my current experiences? And fast forward a few years later, I have done, a lot of healing, a lot of medicine and ceremonies with mushrooms, ayahuasca, with sananga, rapé, ketamine, MDMA, even like done a lot of sexual healing within myself through MDMA on at least 3 different occasions where I have held space for myself to navigate the pain that comes up for me, of allowing myself to feel pleasure again and to feel safe in my sensuality and in my sexuality. And eventually, in my most recent ayahuasca ceremony, which was about 3 months ago, I was able to see that this situation had occurred with a family member. And I worked through forgiveness, and I have been working through my resentment and my rage and my fire. And it has been extremely painful and also extremely beautiful to witness how I am capable of holding myself today as an adult and holding my inner child as I reparent myself, becoming the mother and the father that I need in order to protect myself, to tend to my needs, and to tend to my emotional intensity of navigating this pain and this trauma. And what I have come to understand is that because of this experience when I was 2 years old, that led me to attract a life of many abusive relationships at work as a journalist, and in relationships with partners, former partners, very unconsciously. Like, I recognized today that I was creating from a space of abuse oftentimes. Not, my whole life has not been abusive and has not been traumatizing. There's also been extremely beautiful experiences. And because today is such a powerful day and it's 888, I really want to share my story, so that it can inspire others that have faced similar situations of sexual abuse and sexual assault or sexual harassment to reclaim their power. Oh my God, there's a hummingbird that just literally stood up on my phone. That was the most beautiful thing. literally the hummingbird just like stood in front of me on my phone. Oh my God. Okay, this is so divine. So my purpose of sharing this story is, and my intention of sharing my personal story, which is very, very vulnerable. And I have sat with this for months and years in regards of, should I share this, should I not? And the responsibility that comes with sharing my personal story and my personal journey. Until finally today, I was like, you know what? It's 888. I'm going to do what I do best, which is communicate. And here I am, communicating in service of a higher purpose. And so, what I have come to understand in my own personal experience is that I want to release the inner venom or the inner pain, the inner resentment, the inner rage that I have been holding on to or carrying within me because of my lived experiences. And I don't want to publicly shame anyone. I don't want to publicly expose anyone because that's not my intention at all. Like, God is taking care of justice. I don't need to point fingers at anyone. I don't even want to, and I don't even want to go into that war because I have been there in my past. And I have learned that my only intention and my only purpose is to reclaim my power, make sure that my temple and my vessel, which is my physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental bodies, are clean, pure, sacred, safe again, and have pristine energy and pure intentions from my heart. And to release all this inner venom, all this resentment that I have been holding on to for years, so that I can let go of living a life of abuse, which I also experienced a lot in the news industry. We all know that the news industry can be a beast and a very difficult experience for a lot of journalists that are empaths and compassionate. And I'm not trying to change the news industry, I'm just trying to change myself. And I'm done living a life of attracting abuse and attracting pain. So I wanted to publicly share that in case this supports anyone. And because I am in Mount Shasta, and this is the root chakra of the world, and it's such a sacred mountain that has continuously transformed my life, I truly wanted to share this inner journey of healing with whoever wants to listen to this live stream on YouTube. And with that said, letting go of living a life of abuse and pain and attracting relationships and jobs where there was so much chaos and turmoil and pain, I am claiming now the heaven on earth that I want to co-create with my sacred partner, who I can feel so near. This is a deep prayer that I have been holding onto in my heart very privately. And I recently was here in Mount Shasta as well last year, in September of last year. And I had a very beautiful spiritual experience and spiritual encounter with a Lemurian from Telos. Telos is the city of light that lies beneath Mount Shasta. And reading this book, Telos, by Aurelia Lewis Jones, which is called Revelaciones de la Nueva Lemuria, or Revelations of the New Lemuria, I have been able to understand that spiritual experience that I had in September of last year at deeper levels. And part of that experience was I was taken here in Mount Shasta to Telos while I was on a spiritual experience with two of my great teachers, Jumar and Sulay, a beautiful partner, a beautiful couple that has a very sacred mission of guiding humanity through spirituality and to kind of this new earth that we're co-creating together. But I was taken to Telos at the Temple of Adama here in Mount Shasta, and I was taken to 3 of their temples of light. The first temple is the Temple of the Blue Flame and the Pink Flame, which is how the feminine and masculine come into sacred union, and the union of couples that are living in a 5D world. So partnerships moving forward will come into union based on a shared purpose. It is not based on female and male, or based on you're hot and I just want to be with you and I want to make love to you, or I'm attracted to you because of whatever reason. No, the highest level of partnership is coming into union because of a shared purpose here on earth. And from there, that sacred purpose is guided by God, and it comes into union in perfect harmony and perfect peace, perfect understanding. Like both partners are speaking the same language, seeing the essence of their soul, and being able to see past their patterns and behaviors, and the purity of their hearts and their intentions, and understanding that there is a huge responsibility being entrusted to them to be great stewards of pristine energy, sacred hearts, and Christ consciousness. So that was the first temple that I was taken into, and it was guided by Adama and Anamar, high priest and priestess of Telos, and by a second woman whose name I learned today, actually. Her name is Rosalea, and I had a personal encounter with Rosalea in person as well at the Medford airport before I left Mount Shasta. So myself and the group that I was with all saw her, witnessed her. I was able to have a personal conversation with her and experience her presence and her energy. And this is a being of so much light and compassion and love that I understood that what I had experienced in Telos here in Mount Shasta was so sacred and was real, because for a minute there I thought I was crazy. And fast forward, first temple was the blue flame and the pink flame. Second temple was the sacred use of creative energy, which is also our sacred energy, sacred sexual energy. And it was an explanation as to how that energy is being used to create the world that we want to live in, worlds of peace, of love, joy, harmony, compassion, empathy, and where all evil and war has ceased, where we are living in perfect harmony with all sentient beings, with nature, with animals, with plants, trees, etc., and other sentient beings, not just humans. And as we experience this more and more, and there's a collective awakening or a collective understanding that we are really all one, and that we are really all evolving together. We have seen how, for example, governments like Trump's administration have been starting to declassify information where there's actual proof that there is other life besides humans here on Earth, that there's aliens, that there is omnis, that there is simply other life besides humans. So sacred use of sexual energy was the second temple, and then the third temple was the future of governments, and how governments will start to work in this new fifth dimension. And they begin by guidance, kind of like from Telos, the city of light, as to how we are going to be moving forward in humanity. And I think we can already see that happening with many administrations across the world. I don't want to get into politics, but I myself have been a White House correspondent, so I've covered many presidents, and I was able to cover the Obama administration, the Trump administration, as well as 10 plus presidents that had bilateral meetings with both governments, including Ivan Duque, the president of Colombia, Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, Justin Trudeau, the president of Canada, Jamil Mawad, the former president of Ecuador, Tuto Quiroga, former president of Bolivia as well, Vicente Fox, former president of Mexico, and so many more. I mean, the list is extensive. So because I have been in those spaces of government and because I have witnessed and experienced bilateral meetings in the White House, in Capitol Hill, in the Organization of American States, in the State Department, I have a deeper understanding as to how those governments are and were operating and how we are shifting into new new ways of working and operating in service of a higher good and in service of a higher light. And all these explanations were entrusted to me in that temple, and I began writing a book back in September of 2025 after having that experience in Telos. This book by Aurelia Lewis Jones, she actually has three series of these books. This is book number 1, so I started reading it, and it explains really well a lot of the experiences that I had. And this was a book that was actually written in, let me see the date, see if I could find it. I believe it was published in 2004. This is actually Adama, the high priest of Telos. So this is one of the beings of light from Telos that I had an encounter with, Adama. The second one was Anamar, and the second woman was Rosalea. And so I'm actually going to read a little bit of a chapter here because they have a message for Latin America, and it's a message from Adama and Amar and Rosalea. They have a message for Sudamerica right here that was channeled by Aurelia Lewis Jones. And I resonated with it deeply because it was a lot of what I had to cover in the White House, covering the Western Hemisphere and politics and how governments were navigating crisis with socialism and with governments like Nicaragua and governments like Cuba, obviously, and the situation that we have seen in Venezuela as well, and how that has began to transform into more freedom and more sovereignty with the removal of Nicolás Maduro. And this is in Spanish. I'm going to read a little bit about it. Why this is relevant to the Diaries of a Journalist is because I was attracting a life of abuse, and a lot of the abuse I also experienced was in the news industry. And then after quitting the news industry, going down this rabbit hole of healing and medicine journeys and shamanic experiences, et cetera, et cetera. And I also experienced a rape 3 years ago that I have worked very hard on forgiving and healing. And also did my due diligence of speaking up to the community leaders that I felt needed to be aware that this human and the shaman was abusing his power with women that were in very vulnerable states while they were going through these medicine journeys with ayahuasca. And I spoke up. I spoke up. I asked for support. And we made sure that the doors to this shaman were shut in Florida, in the United States, as much as possible. And he's no longer in my community in Miami, as far as I know, because I made sure that my sisters, my friends, my my community was protected, and that nobody had to endure or go through what I experienced 3 years ago. So with that said, I'm sharing this from from a space of doing a lot of inner work, doing a lot of healing, a lot of crying, a lot of trying to understand what this was teaching me, what the higher purpose of this experience was, and really reclaiming my power, reclaiming my sovereignty and my sensuality and my sexuality, as opposed to staying in victimhood and blame and shame, because that doesn't do me any good to point the finger and to continue perpetrating that pain. And instead, I really chose to work very hard to stand in my power. I continue to choose to stand in my power. And I don't feel like I am fully in my throne or in my power right now. However, I do feel the shift in all of my bodies, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, towards really standing in my power and my sovereignty, and holding my ground, my boundaries, my sacred temple, and so on. So it has been a journey, and my only intention is to help other women reclaim their sovereignty and their power, and to come out of states of shame and victimhood, and really ask yourselves, like, what is the higher purpose of this experience, and how can I turn this pain into purpose? So with that said, I'll read a little bit about this. It basically says, like, in these moments, a great percentage of us have need to align with our higher self or our divine self, and come together and unite with those who have been reclaiming the flame of love and of wisdom for ourselves and for others. And the new world that is being dreamt of can only manifest until the great majority of South America, comes together to a level of those who have embraced the true path of Christic consciousness and are living from the heart. So in previous decades, Native communities have done a lot to anchor the energy of the sacred, divine creator, and they have also been sharing the energy of the of nature, of plants, and of the forest, the tropical forest, with sensitive beings that inhabit the oceans throughout our coasts. So these tropical forests have continued to sustain the vibration of a fifth dimension, and the energy that many species that have now abandoned our dimension, the species of the animal life that have gone extinct and that through eons have not been seen in the third dimension. They used to be present among us and amongst the human race in these tropical forests. However, the crystalline structure of the earth has been given birth to species and plants that have existed in the third dimension in the years of the continent of Lemuria. And these plants possess the true power of healing and intelligence, and they are composed of the energy of all the rains, of all the not the rains, of all the dimensions, and of all the vegetable life, the I guess the garden life, the animal life, and the insects. And these tropical forests have existed in our dimension as an example at a greater scale of cooperation, co-creation between plants, animals, and humans. And the native tribes that lived in these forests, in these tropical forests, had the wisdom of these forms of healing that come from the temples of the original temples of Lemuria. They have been working with the crystalline energy and the transformation and information of the vegetable life through rituals of ingestion. So, as we drink the energy of these plants and we merge with their DNA, with the plants, we can center ourselves with the intention consciously that we are surrendering to their higher will, and the will of the kind of the gods of the plants, with the most respect and gratitude and love, asking for the wisdom and the knowledge of this sacred intelligence as they can provide it to us when we are ready and in divine timing, so that we may receive the presence of Christic consciousness in all of these countries. And it has been much of a path or an icon, and something that the Catholic Church did to try to corrupt these true teachings from Christ. And instead, these shamans, these healers, have been able to look inside of their own hearts and have been able to find that the heavens or the hierarchies of nature have offered the greatest teachings on earth. Unfortunately, we have allowed that the tropical forests be destructed, and part of the ancient, sacred, magical, multidimensional areas of these tropical forests have now been lost. And the energies of the majority of these species, these birds, these reptiles, these insects, and these animals, and even these plants from the fourth and fifth dimension have abandoned our earth as we know it. And now, today, we urge everyone to do anything that is within their power to preserve what we have left of the forest, of the plants, of the animal kingdom, and continue to honor the groups of dolphins, of whales that are still monitoring and protecting the sacred energy of these spaces, like in the coast of Brazil and Argentina. And that the destiny of the political and social situations in these countries in Southern America have become very unstable. However, as we are able to shift our consciousness and our vibration to that of love and the Christic consciousness, we will be able to kind of evolve with the planet and continue spreading the light of this Christic consciousness and the curse, not the curse, the path of the sacred waters in these countries, so that they can distribute these frequencies of superior wisdom, superior knowledge to all those who are open to receive this process of evolution. This includes the river of the Amazons, that has a great level of consciousness derived directly from the earth, and and also the Ganges from India, this great deva from the water that cleanses the emotions of the continent in South America as well. So with this, it's basically speaking about the wisdom of the plants, the wisdom of the forest, the wisdom of the animal kingdom, and how it is our duty as a human race to truly begin stepping up to protect the earth, to protect the plants, to protect the animal kingdom. And I know I myself have been learning to tend better to my own water, to my own body, and to the waters of earth as well. And part of me doing that has been through singing to the waters, drinking the waters from the rivers. The water here in Mount Shasta is water that is extremely sacred, that births from the river of Sacramento and goes down through California. So when we drink these waters that are still pristine and pure, we are allowing our inner bodies as well to evolve to that crystalline consciousness, to that pristine energy, to remember Christ consciousness, to remember love, to remember the purity of our intentions and the purity of our hearts, and to act from that space of pure love anytime that we can. And it's not always possible. I mean, I'm human. I've made a lot of mistakes, and sometimes I have not acted from a space of love, and I have acted from a space of rage, even though that is also love. Rage is also love. It's teaching us to protect ourselves, to protect our boundaries, to hold protection and fierceness with something that has been felt like has been violated or has been hurt or damaged, and that rage is protecting us and taking care of us, and really making sure that we place boundaries where needed. So with that said, the message of this is, yes, indigenous tribes hold a lot of wisdom. Shamanic leaders hold a lot of wisdom from the plants, from the sacred plants, from the animal kingdom. And that does not mean that we need to place humans on a pedestal. We all get to do our inner work, and we all get to become our own best guru. And learning from the wisdom of the forest and the wisdom of the animal kingdom and the plants is extremely crucial and important in today is day and age and moving forward. So my invitation to all of you on this 888 portal is to reclaim a life of health and wellness and love and joy and peace and harmony and miracles and walking a path of heaven and earth, and to release all the contracts and all the situationships or situations or agreements where we needed to learn through pain and chaos and drama. Like we get to learn through ease, love, joy, and grace now. And I'm claiming that for myself, and I wish that for everyone that is open and ready to receive that as well. And that we get to continue co-creating and building in harmony with nature, with the animal kingdom, with all the plants, and really from this energy of Christ consciousness, and where our thoughts are blessed, our thoughts are golden, so we can live a golden life as well. I know that was a lot to share. I feel vulnerable, tender, and also complete. And I pray that my own inner healing journey can touch many lives, and that it can support whoever is on this path or on this journey to deeper layers of healing, self-compassion, and love for themselves as well, and reclaiming their power and their sovereignty. So happy 888. This is the Diaries of a Journalist from Mount Shasta, California. And I am sending you guys all the love and all the strength and all the prayers from this sacred mountain that has transformed my life in more ways than I can count. And it continues to do that. So sending everyone love, and I will see you in the next session of the Diaries of a Journalist.